So US President Donald Trump has moved to put taxes of 25% on heavy truck imports.
Trump announced the change will take effect on October 1st, writing on Truth Social last night that the large-scale flooding of the products into the U.S. by other countries is unfair to local manufacturers.
On the evening of September 30th, President Donald Trump confirmed that a new round of import tariffs will take effect on October 1st. Among them is a 25% duty on heavy-duty trucks entering the United States. The White House frames the decision as a matter of fairness and even national security, pointing to what it calls a flood of imported vehicles. But this is not just a technical adjustment. It is a major hit to one of the most critical arteries of the American economy, the trucking industry. Heavy trucks are not luxury items. They are the backbone of how food, building materials, and manufactured goods move across the country. By raising their price, the government is not only challenging foreign competitors, it is raising the stakes for every American business that depends on freight. To understand the weight of this decision, consider the numbers. Industry data show that a new Class 8 truck, the standard for long-haul transport, sells for about $170,000. Add a 25% tariff to imported models, plus the 12% federal excise tax already in place, and the final price for many fleets will climb well above $220,000 per vehicle. That gap of $50,000 or more is not small change for operators. For large carriers, it means higher capital costs. For small and medium-sized fleets, it means delaying purchases and stretching old equipment further. Trucks are typically run 100 to 120,000 miles each year in their first phase of use, then rotated into lighter service after 5 or 6 years. When replacement is delayed, maintenance costs rise, safety margins narrow, and efficiency falls. Some companies like PACCAR, which makes Kenworth and Peterbilt trucks, may see a relative advantage. Analysts note that earlier tariffs on steel and aluminum pushed up their costs by 10 to 15% compared to rivals building vehicles in Mexico and shipping them into the United States without penalty. A tariff on finished trucks does reduce that gap. Yet what is a relief for one manufacturer becomes a burden spread across the wider economy. Higher acquisition costs for equipment ripple through freight rates, logistics expenses, and ultimately the prices consumers pay. Just across the border, the picture looks different. Canada is a significant exporter of medium and heavy trucks into the American market, often through assembly plants that meet USMCA rules of origin. In early September, Ottawa lifted most of its retaliatory tariffs on U.S. goods, keeping only those tied to steel, aluminum, and autos. By pulling back on broader surtaxes, Canada preserved leverage and signaled readiness to negotiate. For Canadian producers, this flexibility matters. If their vehicles qualify under USMCA, they may avoid or limit the impact of Trump's new tariff. That opens a channel for Canada to present itself as a stable and compliant partner at the very moment American buyers face higher costs at home. The intended message of this policy is protection. The real effect may be strain. Trucking is the pulse of American commerce. Raising the price of the vehicles that keep it moving means higher costs for retailers, construction firms, and farmers, long before it means new jobs in factories. Canada, by contrast, has positioned itself to weather the shock, reduce trade friction, and keep its exports flowing. The outcome is an inversion of Trump's promise. Instead of shielding American business, the tariff risks slowing it down, while giving Canada an unexpected opening in the continental supply chain. This is why many observers call it another example of a policy designed to protect but destined to backfire.
We know we can't control what other nations do. So we're focused on what we can control, building our strength right here at home.
The Port of Montreal's plans to expand is one of the 5 major projects Prime Minister Mark Carney has targeted to fast-track. At the end of its construction, it will handle more than 1 million containers a year.
President Trump continues to celebrate tariffs as proof of America's strength, presenting them as a tool to force partners into line. But across the border, Canada is taking a quieter approach. Instead of chasing headlines, Ottawa is laying bricks for long-term resilience. It is investing in projects that do not show instant results, but will change the country's position in global trade for decades to come. At the center of this effort stands the Port of Montreal expansion at Contrecoeur. Prime Minister Mark Carney has placed it among the 5 national projects chosen for fast-track approval. For Ottawa, this expansion is not simply about handling more cargo. It is about securing independence in logistics at a time when tariffs and trade disputes make cross-border reliance riskier than ever. The Port of Montreal is already close to its full capacity. According to the Montreal Port Authority, the existing terminals are nearly saturated. Without expansion, container traffic risks hitting a bottleneck that could choke one of Canada's most important gateways. The Contrecoeur project is designed to prevent that. Once complete, it will add capacity for more than 1 million containers per year. The federal government has created a major projects office to coordinate the work and ensure deadlines do not slip. Under Bill C-5, Ottawa can also streamline the regulatory process so that major projects move faster. The benefits are not minor. The federal government estimates the expansion will generate 1,200 construction jobs and bring 140 million Canadian dollars in annual economic value once operational. But challenges remain. Fisheries and Oceans Canada and Environment Canada must still approve measures to protect the copper red horsefish and the western chorus frog. Environmental groups have also launched lawsuits against Bill C-5 in Quebec's Superior Court. Despite these hurdles, officials remain confident. The project will move forward, with fieldwork scheduled for 2027 and completion targeted for 2030. The strategic meaning of this expansion goes far beyond container counts. For years, much of central Canada's trade has flowed through American ports like New York and New Jersey before reaching global markets. This dependency gave the United States leverage, especially when tariffs became a political weapon. With a new terminal at Montreal, Canadian exporters will be able to ship directly to Europe and the Atlantic markets without rerouting through U.S. infrastructure. This shift is crucial in the context of Trump's reciprocal tariffs. Instead of being trapped, Canada is creating alternatives. The expansion aligns with broader investments, such as Electra Battery Materials' cobalt refinery in Ontario and new development in potash mining. Together, these moves build a foundation for supply chains that are less exposed to sudden tariff shocks from Washington. In the long run, projects like this could also encourage global shippers to see Canada as a stable hub, not just a secondary option. By proving it can deliver capacity and reliability, Canada strengthens its bargaining power in future trade negotiations. That credibility matters when neighbors and allies are rethinking their supply routes under constant tariff uncertainty. Trump's strategy is built on short-term pressure. His administration points to tariffs as evidence that America is winning the trade fight. But the Canadian response tells another story. By investing in its own capacity, Canada is preparing for the long game. The Port of Montreal expansion has become a symbol of this approach. It ensures that the nation can handle more trade on its own soil, reducing reliance on U.S. ports and limiting exposure to American tariff politics. In the end, tariffs that were meant to weaken Canada are fueling its determination to stand on firmer ground. When the terminal opens in 2030, it will not just represent steel and concrete. It will represent a strategic shift. The map of North American trade will look different, with Canada more confident as a direct gateway to the world. Trump's tariffs may have caused pain in the short term, but they are also pushing Canada to build independence that could outlast any administration in Washington.
Tariffs on canola came up unexpectedly. If they can come on fast, then come off fast. And the Chinese are just going to want something in return.
This is something that the Prime Minister has been looking at. That being said, when it comes to EVs, you saw what we announced. First and foremost, we said that we would be lifting the ZAV mandate.
Just a few days ago,
President Donald Trump renewed his call for allies to stand with the United States and punish China with higher tariffs. In his vision, Canada should act like a loyal soldier, following Washington's lead no matter the cost. Ottawa did not answer directly. Instead, it sent a very different signal. Prime Minister Mark Carney's government is now considering rolling back the 100% tariff on Chinese electric vehicles, a tariff that was originally designed to keep pace with Washington. This move looks like a bucket of cold water thrown straight into Trump's face. While he praises America first and expects others to fall in line, Canada is showing that it is ready to step out of America's shadow to defend its own economy. The shift is not accidental. It comes after China retaliated with tariffs that crushed Canada's canola industry, a backbone of prairie agriculture. Farmers in Saskatchewan, the heartland of canola, are being squeezed. On one side, Ottawa's tariff wall on Chinese EVs. On the other, Beijing's 76% duty on canola imports imposed in mid-August. For farmers, this is not abstract geopolitics. It is a simple question of survival. Can they sell their harvest without losing money? When Premier Scott Moe returned from his mission to China with a message of more constructive talks than expected, it confirmed the pressure on Ottawa to shift course.
The EV tariff was first introduced to shield Canada's auto sector and align with Washington's strategy against Beijing. But the cost has been severe. Beijing struck back by targeting canola, one of Canada's most valuable farm exports. With duties near 76%, farmers now face the prospect of selling their harvest below production cost. Scott Moe's trip to Beijing provided a rare opening. He met directly with the officials who imposed the tariffs and described the discussions as unexpectedly positive. When he returned, Carney publicly thanked him, a gesture that showed Ottawa now sees the crisis for prairie farmers as urgent as protecting auto workers. Canada is stuck in a trade-off that pits crops against cars, and the balance can no longer hold.
In Ottawa, the tone is clearly shifting. Foreign Minister Mélanie Joly has acknowledged the government is reviewing the EV tariff and exploring new imports from Japan, South Korea, and Europe. That is a clear departure from the firm stance of earlier months. On the Chinese side, the revival of the Joint Economic Trade Commission after 7 years shows Beijing is willing to re-engage. Premier Moe reported the Chinese officials expressed a readiness to look forward rather than back. These developments suggest the two sides are testing ways to recalibrate their trade relationship, not only on canola, but in a broader framework.
If Canada removes the EV tariff, the immediate effect would be relief for farmers. China could ease its duties, restoring access to a premium market that Canadian producers rely on. Consumers would benefit from cheaper electric vehicles, though domestic manufacturers would face new competition. Ottawa could also seize the chance to demand that Chinese automakers build plants in Canada, creating jobs and strengthening supply chains. The political dimension is equally important. On the surface, this looks like a direct snub to Trump, who has urged Ottawa to join his tariff wall against Beijing. But in practice, it is more about pragmatism than open defiance. Canada cannot afford to sacrifice its farm economy simply to stay in Washington's good books, especially when Trump's own tariffs continue to hit Canadian metals, lumber, and energy exports. By recalibrating, Canada is signaling that it will defend its own workers and industries first. It is not abandoning the United States, but it is refusing to blindly follow. In today's fractured global economy, such independence may be the only way for Canada to navigate between two superpowers without losing its footing at home.